for our brain. Is there any difference between THC and CBD in this regard?
Interestingly, there was some research done and a science paper published in 1998 that examined both CBD and THC, cannabidiol and tetrahydrocannabinol,
Yeah.
for its neuroprotective and antioxidant properties. And it was concluded on the basis of this research, and this was conducted incidentally by 4 scientists who were funded by the US government, including a Nobel Prize winning scientist.
Yeah.
It concluded that both THC and CBD were powerful neuroprotectants and antioxidants, meaning they actually protected the brain against degeneration uh, and other insults. And this research became the basis for a patent that the US government took out on the neuroprotective and antioxidant properties of cannabinoids. And they
Yeah.
were referring to the plant cannabinoids, specifically THC and CBD. I should point out that this patent has been somewhat misleadingly represented by the CBD industry, which typically refers to it as a patent on CBD. That's not the case. It was a patent on cannabinoids.
Yeah.
Uh, on the basis of research conducted into both CBD and THC. So there you have it from the highest authorities in the U.S. government in terms of the medical establishment, understanding that these particular compounds from the cannabis plant are actually very good for the brain, that they can. That would be protective against all sorts of neurodegenerative diseases, and specifically mentioned were Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, and so forth. Basically protective against dementia. And what's interesting is that this research conducted by modern science actually confers and validates
Yeah.
the ancient wisdom going back to China 5,000 years earlier, where cannabis was part of the medical pharmacopoeia in China. It was considered one of the supreme elixirs of immortality. That doesn't mean if someone took cannabis, they'd live forever. But it was understood in ancient China that cannabis conferred longevity, that it would protect against dementia. And this is explicitly stated in the ancient Chinese medical texts. So that there is a convergence of modern science and ancient wisdom. And I'm actually very comfortable with that. I think that's a good indication that there's something really going on here. So,
Yeah.
contrary to a lot of scare stories about marijuana harming the brain and all this, it's actually quite the opposite. That's not to say one can smoke or take as much as they want, and it'll always be good for you,
Yeah.
but it's not harmful to the brain in a way, for example, that alcohol might be harmful to the liver. It doesn't degenerate brain cells. Quite the contrary. The researchers have found is that CBD and THC are both what scientists refer to as neurogenic compounds, meaning they actually stimulate the creation of new brain cells
Yeah.
in adults. And this is something that happens since we were born. Actually, when the child's brain is being formed in the womb, there's obviously a lot of neurogenesis, meaning formation of new cells, and because the brain is forming, and this process slows down considerably after birth, but it actually continues to some degree throughout one's lifetime. When one reaches old age, it could slow down considerably. And when there's a slowdown of neurogenesis, that is associated with clinical depression.
Yeah.
So CBD and THC have antidepressant properties in part because they stimulate the creation of new brain cells in a particular part of the brain called the hippocampus. Again,
Yeah.
now this is not far flung stoner mythology. This is real science that is not controversial within the scientific community. This is
Yeah.
well understood. Unfortunately, what happens in the scientific world often stays just among scientists, and it doesn't get out to the general public. So we still have a lot of myths about reefer madness and about the harm of marijuana that continues to burden us culturally.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Martin. That was extremely insightful.